Well, greetings everyone, and welcome to the SPORTSKRIB. We are here just as every other Thursday night, now streaming right here on the SPORTSKRIB network. You can catch us now on YouTube as well as the Steeler Chronicles. We're going to be talking about the Steelers, whether Big Ben should retire, what's the status going to be for uh, Mike Tomlin. And of course, the big one, the James Harden trade. Now, a lot of you that have been following us know that my opinion of James Harden uh, was that he was kind of the TO of basketball. Um, think of the OKC team that he was a part of. Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and you have James coming off the bench. Well, James felt he was a starter, and I have no problem with that. So James worked his way out of Oklahoma to Houston. Now that he's in Houston, it's uh, so it seems like some of the people can't get in here. I'm gonna let's see. Uh, very uh, okay. I have to. Sorry about this, audience. Um, Not exactly sure. Uh, okay, let's see. Okay, maybe they'll use the link that I gave them. Let's see. Seems like people. Okay. All right. Hopefully, Laura will be here. I just sent another note to Frank, and we can get our gentleman in. Looks like Don is not going to be in this week. Don is off. I believe Don. I sent it. Okay. We're gonna do this again. Send it Monday. Okay. We're gonna have to do this the hard way. Excuse me for 1 minute.
Okay.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So first of all, I want to welcome our new gentleman to the crew, and I'm not going to try to mess up your name, so why don't you tell everybody what your name is?
Lior Kozai.
Yeah, you got it.
It's not hard. It's an easy one.
Okay, Mr. Bilingualist here. It's okay. All right. Uh, tell us a little bit about yourself, sir.
I'm like a recent journalism grad of it's a school called Ryerson here in Toronto, Ontario, just north of the border. And yeah, I'm like aspiring to work in either journalism or sports media, and huge basketball fan, NFL fan. Watch a little bit of college sports, but not as much. Yeah.
And I guess we're going to start with a little NBA here. And being in Canada, I saw that you were a Toronto Raptor fan.
Mm.
And I was looking, they were one of the teams that I was looking at earlier, starting out rather poorly right now. But people say that, in the East that they're going to make the playoffs. What's your thoughts on the current Raptor team? Are you rebuilding? Are you contenders? What's the deal?
Yeah, I think it's kind of in between, like definitely they're not like a contending team anymore. Like they're not on that level of like Philadelphia, Milwaukee, the Nets, of course. But I think they'll still like maybe make the playoffs as like a 7 or 8 seed, kind of on the low side. Obviously they had a tough start, but I think it was a little tough for the players just having to move to Tampa and kind of like rebuilding their lives over there. And then also they lost a couple close games on the road trip, like back-to-back games by 1 point. So I think like it looks a little worse than it is, just because the record's 2-8. It could have been 4-6 if they like made a couple of shots in the last 10 seconds. But yeah, definitely not like it's not a contending team anymore. So they're kind of in this in-between phase. But I think they'll be a little bit better than their record is right now.
Okay. Well, of course, gentlemen, we have to talk about the big trade. James Harden. Frank, I'm going to start with you. What was your thoughts? Did who won, who lost in this calliope here?
Well, you notice my background is now the Barclays Center Brooklyn Nets support, but it also has empty seats, if that tells you anything. Here's what I see. On paper, it sounds great. And I know everyone's going to give you all these reasons why it can work and why it can't work, and that's fantastic. But let's look at a couple of things really simple, that are really simple. One, James Harden decided not to play or get in shape to play to force a trade to get out of Houston. That's not good. Two, we don't even know where Kyrie is right now. That's not good. Three, Kevin Durant is a pro, but Kevin Durant may also end up being a very injured pro. We don't know. So who are we relying on? Of those three guys, who is the guy that's going to be, we're going to ride his back and get to the promised land? Not forgetting Spencer Dinwiddie's out and a whole bunch of other stuff, and they're bringing in new guys and all kinds of stuff and everything, and who knows what's going on. So I've heard that they're now the favorite in the East. I'm not sure about that. I just think it's a weird situation. It could end up being the big three and they ride to the promised land and everything's great. I see it being a disaster. But it might be good for a week or two. But then when somebody says, hey, you didn't pass me the ball for 43 minutes. What are we supposed to do then? Well, I was open. Well, I had the ball. Well, why didn't somebody play some defense? I don't play defense. You knew that when you brought me in. Oh, okay. So I don't think it can end well. Actually, I don't even think it can start well because it hasn't yet. So.
I see it as purely Larry and Mo. But Bill, what's your thoughts on that?
You might remember when last we saw our hero, James Harden. So I told you when we talked about when he was the last time he demanded a trade, and he was going to go to Houston, what did I say? It's going to work just fine until there's a game where they're down by 2 with 7 seconds to go, and we see 2 grown men wrestling for the basketball at the 3-point line. Now we get to have 3 grown men wrestling for the basketball at the 3-point line with 7 seconds to go. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be fan-freaking-tastic. Bring it on. I can't wait.
Well, and can I add something to that as well?
Sure.
The lead assistant on that team is the coach that Harden didn't want to play for. Okay. And
What
now
could be better?
Well, what could be better is you have Steve Nash, who doesn't quite grasp the concept that you don't want to share the ball. And now he's going to have to teach 3 grown men the concept of sharing the ball, which I'm sure it's just a foreign idea to him that he even has to teach that. So it's fun.
It's going to be amazing.
What do you think, Lar?
I don't know. Like, I think Kevin Durant has shown like he's willing to share the ball. Like he's shown in Golden State, like he basically went and like joined this super team, and they were like one of the best, like in terms of on-court fit. Like they moved the ball really well. Like no one was being selfish or anything, and he was still scoring his like 25 points or whatever, and they won 2 championships. I think like Kyrie, I think if he like, you know, if he's focused and he's back with the team and he buys in, like he's shown he can be at least the second option with LeBron in Cleveland for their title. And like I don't think it's impossible that he can kind of defer as that third option. But then, yeah, like you said, like it gets tough with Harden because, you know, he's been the best scorer in the league, and he's an amazing talent. But yeah, the question is like, is he suddenly going to go from leading the league in scoring every single year to being like the second option, and maybe some nights like the third option? Like I don't think he'll be happy about that. And that's like before we even get to the defensive side, where like they were already like maybe bottom 10 in defense, and then they gave up like Jared Allen, probably their best center so far this season, and then like it's going to be a small team. It's going to, I think, struggle to defend, and then you go against teams like the Bucks with Giannis and the Sixers with Embiid, and it's like who's guarding the rim against these guys?
No.
Eric Coleman.
The rim will be as free and as open as the wind.
Yeah, like it's just like they were already starting, I guess, Durant at the 4, and like that's already a small team to begin with, and now like DeAndre Jordan didn't even play the other night against the Knicks, I think. So now he's going to be, I guess, the starting center. So there's just a lot of question marks. Like I saw their GM said today that this isn't the final roster, so I guess they're going to try to sign a center or like trade for someone, but I don't know if like, yeah, who's available or how they're going to manage that. And kind of, it's just a big question mark at that position right now.
Hi, Channing Tatum. What are you? Not Channing Tatum. Channing Frye. Well, who knows? Maybe Channing Tatum. He's like
Channing Tatum might as well, right? Let's kick the tires on Keith Van Horn one more time.
Well, gentlemen, let's talk about our current champions here, the Lakers. They're 3-3 at home, but they're 7-0 on the road. Is this scary, you know, to when you look at, you know, this season and you know them having such a road record?
No. Next question.
Hold on, I think I have Don here.
I'll weigh in on that one real quick.
Okay, good.
Look, this is yeah, because I love to talk, so that's it. This is a situation where for the Lakers, I don't think
send me a Facebook message in our
I don't care if
Facebook
they're playing on the moon. I don't care if they're playing in the bottom of a swimming pool in Sarajevo. It doesn't make
Can you hear me?
They're going to go out there and they're going to play, and especially without there being fans in the stands, that doesn't make a lot of difference. It's just, you know, what are we, 13 games into the season or whatever it is? You know, it's just a bump in the road because when they're going to have to play, they have 2 guys that can guard most of the court.
Yep.
They have two guys that can't be guarded by the rest of the court, and they actually have other role players that are understanding their role. So they don't. And here's the key thing I think that we forget about, especially this time of the season. They know they're making the playoffs. They're not worried about that. And they're not worried about having the best record to get home court advantage, because there is no home court advantage. So if they get into the playoffs with a 44 and I can't even do math now, 38 record, they don't care. I don't know how many games they're playing this year, so I forgot that. But they don't care.
However many games it is, whatever.
At a 650 winning percentage, how's that? They don't seem to care. So it's just get it in and then kick butt from there. Like last year. Remember, we were going, I don't know if the Lakers are going to be any good or not. And they got in the playoffs to swipe through everybody. So
yeah, we just talked about roster construction being done all wrong. And now we have this delightful comparison, where you build a team where you have very few role players and a bunch of superstars, like maybe too many superstars. And then you have another team where you have, I think, the exact right number of superstars and a bunch of tremendous, as Frank just said, tremendous role players who know their role and play their role at a high level. Hey, I'm a guy to occasionally hit threes and play tough defense. I'm going to do that. Hey, I'm a guy that moves the ball up, brings the ball up when either LeBron says, hey, my legs hurt, I'm old, you do it, or he's not on the court. Hey, my job is to get us rebounds and occasionally tip one in, or maybe they'll throw an alley-oop to me. Guys get it. They know that I may only score 6 points per game, get a couple rebounds per game, occasional block shot, or I may just get a couple of assists per game, play some tough defense, maybe get a shot, maybe not. And they're fine with it. One, because as Frank mentioned, you're going to get a ring when it's all over. I mean, that helps a lot of guys say, you know what? I'm okay with not scoring as many points. I mean, this was the secret sauce that made when Golden State was Golden State. This is what made the secret sauce made them work. Guys like Iguodala have been 26-point-a-night guys at one point in their careers said, I'm fine with being a 9-point-a-night guy because I want to win a ring.
Sean Livingston.
You're right. You had guys like Livingston. You had what's his name who had gone Bogut. I mean, a bunch of guys who had been, first 3 or 4 of the draft kind of guys that people were building franchises around at one point said, I'm fine with being the 7th guy off the bench. I'm good with that as long as we get rings. And no offense to what's going on with Harden and company, but I just don't see how that's ever going to get them. Forget rings. I don't think how it's going to get them more than one playoff series win. I don't see how it's going to work. Like, they might get the right matchup early on and get one series. But that second series, you're not going to get a team that's not good. And a good team is going to politely usher them back out of the playoffs, I think, forever. Or at least as long as that team is constructed as it is. Sorry to keep going back to that, but I just can't. That's just a mind. I love it. It's delicious.
And we're singing the praises of Rob Pelinka and Frank Vogel.
Because they're good.
Yeah. Wow.
Don, we were talking about the record of the Lakers being 3-3 at home and 7-0 on the road. First of all, let's welcome our new gentleman, Laura, to the Sports Crib. I hope he comes back and decides that this is a place you'd like to talk sports with us, old gentleman here. Look at that young face, man. I'm like, oh, my goodness.
I have socks older than Leor.
Leor is actually from north of the border there, Don. He's a Canadian. But what's your thoughts there on the Lakers record, especially their road record?
Well, it really shouldn't be surprising, with the COVID and the restriction viewership and all that at home games. The home court advantage is kind of taken away. I think you don't have the crowd, and I think that plays into the the whole disparity between the home court and away travel. So it's not a big surprise. Not a big surprise.
Okay. And what did you think about the James Harden trade? We're still thinking about the calm down there in San Antonio, but hey, you got the hurricane that was that used to be in Houston. What do you think about that trade? Are the Nets going to be the Lakers of the East or what?
Well, the thing is, Harden, we know he can put up a lot of points, but is he a good fit? In Houston, he was a good fit about maybe 40-50% of the time. It's just going to take patience on, because this is the second time he's played with Durant, as we know. They were hooked up in Oklahoma City. So, maybe, second time's a charm. We'll see. I think it's a good move for everyone involved. I think it's good for New York. I think it's good for Houston, actually. But we'll see how it all pans out. But I think, well, let's put it this way. The East got a lot more interesting.
Yeah.
After that. A lot more interesting.
Interesting. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought, too. Interesting, but, did they bring a winner? That's the thing. I mean, but I guess we'll see. I know it's way too early, but while we're talking about New York, the Knicks have lost 4 in a row. And, of course, everybody was talking about the rebuilding of the Knicks and, how good, things. It'll be a much better NBA when the Knicks are the Knicks from my age. I don't know why all of a sudden. It's not like the Knicks have been close. Maybe close to the bottom. But what do you think? Let's start with you on that one, Bill.
Well, I don't think Black Jesus is walking through those doors anytime soon. I don't know how to break it to you, man. I don't think Dave DeBuscher's making a comeback, and is Bill Bradley? Last I saw him, he was retiring from being a senator. So I don't think the Knicks of your youth are about to get back together. The Knicks of Lior's youth. They're still paying some of those dudes to not play basketball the last weekend. It's a cluster bleep. And as the old Italian saying is, a fish rots from the head down. Their ownership, with Donald Sterling having been ushered out of the league, is now officially the worst ownership in the NBA. Whenever they do have a promising young player, something goes wrong. Either at some point the promising young player demands to get out, or they get hurt, or both, or they don't end up being as good as advertised, or they aren't as good as advertised, get hurt, and demand a trade or whatever. All the bad things happen, right? At some point, it seems. The order changes. Sometimes demand a trade, then get hurt. Sometimes get hurt, then demand a trade. Sometimes not be as good as advertised, then demand a trade. You can mix it up as however you want, shake it up and then pour it out. Well, however it comes out, it's going to be bad stuff that happens to the Knicks. They, first of all, need to stop missing in the draft, which is obviously easier said than done. But and they've had some hits in the draft, but they never tend to stay. But they need one to when they have a hit in the draft, keep the player. When you have a great player, keep him. It sounds easy, but somehow they still seem to be able to do it. And then bring up young talent, and not just playing talent, but young coaching talent and young talent acquisition talent, the talent that finds you talent. The Spurs are down right now, but the Spurs have in the past done almost everything right in terms of evaluating talent, and not just on-court talent, but talent in the front office, talent in strength and conditioning, talent in marketing. They get it. We're going to find talented young people in every part of our organization and bring them up and promote them. And then you have the Knicks. And though both teams are not doing well simultaneously, one team is going to at some point right the ship. It might not be this year. It might even be next year. But by, before 2025, we know the Spurs will be back to being in contention somehow. Can we say the same about the Knicks with any confidence? I can't. Maybe you can.
Don, what about you?
As in regards to
in regards to the Knicks losing 4 in a row, and as Bill compared, who's going to make that break first, the San Antonio Spurs or the Knicks? San Antonio it hasn't really been able to rely on LaMarcus this year. And I'm not sure about, is it DeRozan? He hasn't been putting up the numbers that he put up last year either.
Actually, Patty Mills has been doing a decent job right now. Yep. But the thing about the Spurs, last week we talked, I was kind of dogging them a little bit. I think they were the 10th in the Western Conference. Now they're 8th. They've won some games since we last talked. They're actually playing decent basketball, and like Bill was saying, the Spurs front office, I think, is stronger than what the Knicks have.
I think we can say that.
Yeah. So I think the Knicks they still have a lot of work to do. As you said, they've lost 4 in a row. Losing can become a habit real quick if you're not careful. Fortunately for them, it's a young season, but that cuts both ways. It could get worse, but I think the Spurs will be fine, as long as they keep improving. You got to look. Each game, you got to get a little bit better. Get that chemistry, consistency. They got some new faces that they have to get used to with the other veterans. So I think the Spurs will be fine.
All right, Frank. Who wins the least, Detroit or the Knicks?
Well, let me touch on the Knicks first, because here's the situation. One, we're actually saying that it's a bad thing that the Knicks have lost 4 in a row. Think about that. When has that been an issue before? It's like, well, they lose 4 in a row all the time. We're actually expecting them not to lose 4 in a row. That's a pretty good start for them, for what we've been expecting in the last 20 years. And we're also saying, hey, Julius Randle can play. Yep. Now, we've been saying that for the last 6 years, and it hasn't been true. We say it for a couple of weeks. We'll see what happens. So it's the video I just finally finished this morning that goes and says, since the NBA draft lottery started in 1985, 3 number 1 picks have taken the team to a title. That's it. 16 lottery picks total have gotten a title win. So it's more about the GM, the front office, what they do now. So you draft guys, RJ Barrett, great. He's going to look good with somebody else's uniform. It's who you bring in later. Just like you're looking at Houston now and all these other picks they've acquired. Now, how do you parcel them out to make the team better? Boston has done that very well lately. It's like, okay, we got picks, we parlay for somebody else, get something in, we try and do a couple things here and there and make it work. But you're not going to build through the draft in the NBA, through the lottery. It doesn't happen. Guarantee it. I've done the research. It doesn't work. But you're looking at a team that can try and get better. They have some parts now that they haven't had before. Now, parlay those parts into something better. And again, as you guys have said, it's the front office. It's the guy that sells tickets. It's all of that. They have to do their job better. And as far as the Pistons are concerned, it's January, right? Is Blake Griffin still playing? Oh, that's right. January. It's January. He's out. Yeah. We're talking. We've socked a lot of money into this guy, and now we're hamstrung with him, literally, because is he going to play a full season? Probably not. So you start making moves. You start doing this, and you start doing that. And when you, especially in a sport where you only have 12 guys on the roster, when you put a lot of money into one guy and he doesn't pan out, what are you going to do with everybody else? You've shipped off parts here and there and every place else, and now you're stuck. So again, it's what do you want to achieve? And you can blame a lot of people, but it always comes back to me, the GM or director of player personnel or whatever. It's like, we're not signing this guy to this huge contract. First of all, he was hurt when you signed him, which doesn't make any sense. But then you signed him all this money knowing that he's a health risk.
Yep.
Well, he'll be healthy with us. Really? He hadn't been healthy. Missed his first year of the pros. So why would you do that? So it just seems weird to me that they do this, and now you're stuck. And now you're stuck in that cycle for another 3 or 4 or 5 years. And as Bill said, you're waiting for Red Holtzman to come in the door and fix everything. Ain't going to happen.
What do you think about that, Loire? The way the Knicks are performing, that's you guys see them a lot, being that you're a Raptor fan. So, what's your take on the Knicks?
The one thing I'll say, like, positively about them is that, like, looking at, like, what Frank said about Detroit with this Blake Griffin contract is, I mean, the Knicks are always chasing these free agents who either they can't really get them or no one else wants them because there's some red flag, like an injury or like they're just aging. And they've kind of had this history of either signing an aging guy or someone who's injured, like Amari Stoudemire, versus just kind of building more slowly and like getting younger guys. And I think they're actually like on the right track in the sense that they didn't go after anyone like that this summer. They kind of made like moves on the margins, like Austin Rivers and I guess Nerlens Noel and Alec Burks, like these like low-paid role players, and they're playing their guys a lot. Like they're playing RJ Barrett and Randall and Mitchell Robinson like a ton of minutes. And I think that's good for them, that those guys, like, they need the minutes, they need the time to develop, instead of signing these veterans and kind of playing those guys over the young guys and stunting their development because they're trying to chase the 8 seed. So I think, like, even though it's going to look bad for a while, like, it's at least different from what their previous front office did, because I think they got Leon Rose as the new GM, like, either last year or, like, kind of recently. And I think that's kind of a different direction than what they've been doing. So, like, in that sense, it's positive.
Let's talk about the Pelicans. What do you think about the way that they're starting the season off? Did you expect more out of Zion?
Yeah, like I'm a big fan of Zion, and like I think his injury history is getting a little bit concerning, and just he misses a lot of games, and he's had like some problems with just his stamina and like having a minutes limit. But I think like overall they've been kind of they're inconsistent and up and down. But I think it's kind of normal for a young team to be that way. Just like not always be consistent, not be the same team from night to night. But yeah, like I am a little disappointed that they're only like 4-6, and I was hoping that they would kind of make a run at like that, like lower tier playoff, to be a lower tier playoff team. But I mean, there's still a lot of time, and it's like every team in the West from 8 all the way to 15 is within 3 games of each other. So I think it will take a little more time to see how they kind of develop, especially with all these young players, but not like the best start from them. What do you guys think?
Yeah, Frank, your thoughts on the Pelicans?
Well, I'm going to kind of echo that with the idea that they're young, and 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 they're probably going to get even younger as we go through the next couple of years, which is kind of scary because now you're still bringing in younger draft picks, one and dones, and you're trying to build something, which is nice. But I don't know, as we just mentioned, I don't know if we can build around Zion because I don't know whether he's going to be there in 3 years. Well, 2 reasons for that. 1, he may be hurt. 2, if they don't get it done quick and he does prove that he can play a little bit, he's going to play out his contract and do an Anthony Davis and go someplace else. So you've got to figure out a way to keep him there. New Orleans is tough because you've got to keep the guys there, and that's a hard thing to do. You can keep the guys that can't play there, but you can't keep the guys that can play there. So you have to build something quickly, which is almost impossible because you're playing with college sophomores and juniors. So it's going to be tough for them. And they're actually doing better than I thought, to tell you the truth right now. It's still early, but they're doing better than I thought. So they're proving something.
What do you think, Don? Right now, Zion's health seems to be the most, as we mentioned with Blake Griffin, happens with a lot of big guys, that we thought were going to be superstars, but that's a lot of wear and tear on the body, a lot of pounding on those ankles when you get that big and you're running up and down the court. Frank, Don, what do you think?
Well, yeah, you can make that point easily. But Zion's still young. I mean, it's not like he's, like you said, Blake Griffin or like Ralph Sampson. I mean, if you don't know who Ralph Sampson is, you're old. But I
think Bill played with him, didn't he? No.
Well, I can tell you that entire roster.
Yes.
Bobby Stokes, Jeff Lamp, Lee Raker.
See, so Don, you mentioned
Olin
the fact that he's young.
him up at the end.
Jeff Jones, right?
Don, you mentioned about him being young, but still, if he's young and injured, that's time.
You kind of wonder, some of these guys that get to the NBA and it's like to get snake bit. They're like, they have these issues that you didn't see when he was, in college, and so it's just it's one of those things. You have to like stress patience, because he can pull Kawhi Leonard and be somewhere in California, and all of a sudden he's averaging 32 points a game and 15 rebounds. I mean, he's one of those guys that could just like explode. And so if you're New Orleans, do you kind of wait and see, or, do you want to try to add people to that roster to make it more competitive? But, there's a reason he's number one pick. And so in last year, we saw flashes of what could be. So, if you're a New Orleans Pelican fan, just be patient.
Bill, you echo that?
Well, as you might remember, back when we were discussing Zion way back, I said I like him as a player, but I wouldn't take him first overall. You might remember me saying that, partially because he is a very thickly built but shorter, quote-unquote, big man. And for a short big man to exist and thrive, he has to do things differently from a big man, right? A guy who's 6'11", 7 feet tall can play a slightly less demanding kind of basketball on his body, on his legs. He doesn't have to spend as much time in the air. And we're talking about a guy who's the heaviest player in the league, right? Didn't I read recently that there's no one in the league heavier than Zion Williamson? So that's a little concerning, just because math, right? If you figure out the guy is having to jump 37 inches in the air to do something, and then at some point he has to come down, right? And mass times acceleration equals force. That force has to go someplace. Some of it's dissipated through the earth, but some of it goes into his body. And at some point, some part of his body is going to say, I'm not sure I'm down for this. And so it's just math. At some point, we saw him, nothing serious in college. We did see him occasionally literally blow a tire kind of because of the explosiveness, right? He looks like a football player, right? He looks like DeForest Buckner or like Campbell's little brother. So you have this not very basketball body having to do basketball things. Now, I'm not saying it can't work. I'm saying I would let someone else take that risk that high in the draft. That's what I said way back then. Hey, if he turns out to be a superstar and I missed out on him, good on you. I will tip my hat. But I don't like at the very top of the draft, right? I don't want to roll the dice at the very top of the draft. We're talking about pick 7, pick 8. I might be a little more open to it. But pick 1 overall, I want a guy who's pretty much a sure thing. I was a big Ja Morant guy just because I know what he's going to be. He's going to be basically the same he was. I don't have to project as much, right? With a guy like Zion, there's always this. We just talked about Blake Griffin, who was taller and not nearly as heavy, but unable to stay healthy. Now we have a shorter, heavier guy with a game similar to Blake Griffin's, very aerial. And it just scares me. I would like to be wrong. I would like for him to never be hurt again and have a 14-year career and be all NBA 7 or 8 times. I want to be wrong. I'm not rooting to be right. I just am afraid of what the future holds.
The next team, the Miami Heat. Bill, you wanted to start with them? They're kind of off to a little rocky start. Of course, Jimmy Butler, speaking of being hurt, he's not the Jimmy Butler that we have seen in the playoffs. But,
Sure. Well,
yeah.
Well, and guess what? If he gets in the playoffs, we'll see that Jimmy Butler again. So let me start. Let's be honest. I mean, I'm not a Heat fan, but I admire the way that team is put together and how they play. That's probably a good way to put it. But they caught lightning in a bottle. I mean, there's a good team, but they also caught lightning in a bottle. Like a lot went right for them, right? In terms of things that happened to other teams and things that happened with their team and weirdnesses that didn't affect them as much because the first thing that Pat Riley looks for is mentally tough. So there were teams that were shaken and thrown off by all the events that I'm not saying it didn't bother them at all, but it didn't bother them as much because it's almost like a bunker mentality from Riley on down. It's like a cult. I mean, I'm barely exaggerating, but you know what I mean? Like the Heat, I wouldn't be shocked if someone told me that like they bonded through like ritual combat. I wouldn't be that. I wouldn't be shocked to hear that. So the fact that last year these things that I think derailed other teams just brought the Heat. Like this is our kind of situation. It's weird and we like it. I mean, that's the Heat. Like the Heat want everything weird and off and not normal because they thrive in that. Now that things are still not normal, but everyone's getting the advantage they had of being able to fight through those things as other teams get more used to the quote unquote new normal. Some of that advantage has gone away. That the cult bunker mentality that helped them to persevere and push through. Now other teams have figured out, maybe not quite to the same extent that the Heat have, but they figured out how to deal with this weirdness. 2, they had a lot of really young guys just suddenly play out of their minds. And you can't count on 20-year-olds to always be able to do that. And yes, Jimmy's not 100%. And Jimmy won't ever admit. I mean, Jimmy could, you could see his entrails hanging out and Jimmy tell you he's fine. I mean, that doesn't mean anything. But yes, he plays hurt a lot. He's probably in the top 10%, 5% of guys who play hurt without ever really trying to let you know they're playing hurt. So it's not quite to the extent of the Lakers where I was like, what next? It's not quite to that extent, but I'm not really concerned. And they're another team that they don't care if they're the 6th seed or the whatever seed. Right. They just want to find their way into the playoffs, and now you're going to see a whole different team.
Don, your thoughts on the Miami Heat?
Miami, they're struggling, but like Bill was saying, they're a very fun team to watch. I mean, they just have a different vibe to them that yes. I can really appreciate. They're almost like in football, it'd be almost like the Oakland Raiders. Baseball would be like maybe the Yankees under Billy Martin, that type of
right. Yes.
I like it. I mean, Jimmy Butler. I mean, he's a true court warrior.
Frank,
they love that you hate them.
Yeah, right. Liar, I'm going to steal something from one of your teams. It's the idea of who in the world was Pascal Siakam when they went to the finals. And, I mean, maybe people in the league knew, but I sure as heck didn't know, and I'm supposed to know. Okay? But the Heat have 3 of those guys, between Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo. And now everybody knows who they are.
Right.
And now they're not just like, well, we're game planning for that guy's open. Well, somebody now they know where they're going and what they're doing. So it's going to be a different season. Doesn't mean they can't overcome, but Tyler Hero's not getting all those open shots anymore. Duncan Robinson is standing out by himself and going, geez, I can check the wind. And, it ain't happening that way. Again, they can overcome that, but it's a different season. It's different things.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like we've kind of seen a couple of those teams, maybe like Sacramento one year where they almost made the playoffs, where this team kind of comes onto the scene as kind of a new team that like just full of kind of unknowns that people haven't really like prepared to face this kind of team, and they come on and that kind of gives them an advantage. And Miami's obviously like the really high end version of that they made the finals. But like, yeah, I think there's definitely like some sense of like teams figuring them out. I also think they had the shortest offseason in like league history, right? So I think a little bit of fatigue, like, Jimmy's always like the hardest worker on the court, so he's always a little bit banged up. Like Bam had an injury in the bubble, Dragic had the injury in the bubble, so kind of all that coming together to have them start a little slow. And like you said, like with the Lakers, they just have the star power to overcome that. They have everything to overcome that. Also having the short off season, but for Miami, it's a little tougher.
Good point.
Yours, we're going to stay with you, man. Talk about the Rockets. They're 3-6. Will they make the playoffs without James Harden?
Honestly, like probably not, I would say, like at least right now. I think it's tough because Victor Oladipo, now that they got him in the Harden trade, it's hard to say like what level he's going to be at, and just kind of being put back in a main role, like as part of this team. But I think they're probably going to trade PJ Tucker, who was kind of he was kind of attached to the Harden trade rumors, I guess, just in the sense that like he wasn't happy there, and he was kind of part of that old team with Chris Paul and Capella. And I think his time there is kind of coming to a close, and they just don't have that much depth besides like Wall and Oladipo now. And the West is just so deep, and like, I mean, even the Nuggets are like on the outside of the playoff picture if it started now. So like, I think there's just going to be a lot of really good teams, and they're just a bit short between like this whole group of really like just quality teams, and also like these exciting young teams like we talked about, the Pelicans, that are kind of overachieving.
Frank?
Well, okay, of all the things that I can think about for the Rockets, the two things that I just stand out to me. I'll do the Blake Griffin thing. Is John Wall still on the active roster? He is. That's a shock to me. Okay. So, but you've hitched your ride to John Wall. God bless John Wall for overcoming what he's overcome and all that and everything, and however you want to put it. But how long is it going to last? Again, when we're talking the NBA, we're talking, multiple games back to back, all this fun stuff. Can he hold up? We don't know. So now you've made him the focal point of a team that he wasn't the focal point of a week ago. Victor Oladipo, I'm not sure how healthy he is. Again, good talent when he is. I'm not sure how healthy he is. And then the rest of the team, I don't even know who it is. I don't know. I mean, I knew who it was last week. I'm not sure who the heck it is this week. I still haven't been able to dig into the trade to figure out what does a 2024 trade swap thing mean. I thought you traded picks. So what's a trade swap? I haven't figured that out yet. So I have no idea, and I don't think they do either. And that's the scary part, because they're supposed to know, and I don't think they do either.
Don, what's going on down there in Texas? Is it going to be your one-man band? Just the Spurs making the playoffs?
Well, yeah. I don't. Let's go back to Rockets. The Rockets aren't going to be anywhere. I don't think they have an identity right now, and it's going to be a while for they establish one. They were Harden for so long, but I think that they're going to struggle this season. I mean, the Captain Obvious, but I think it will definitely get worse before it gets better. That's just where it goes. Now, of course, we talked about the Spurs briefly. The Spurs are actually showing signs of life. They're, like I said, Popovich is whatever he and R.C. Buford are doing. It's starting to work. It's starting to come together. Maybe. Of course, we're still early in the season, so we'll see. But right now, if you look at the Dallas Mavericks, they're actually, probably the best in Texas right now. They're right in the thick of it. So, and I like their roster. So, if I were to rank them, I'd go Mavs 1, Spurs 2, and Rockets distant third.
As you said, distant third, like in way back here.
Yeah,
I'd take the Longhorns and the Cougars over the Rockets right now.
Exactly. Don't forget Texas Tech.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Starting to play a little basketball down there. Not just because it's not just playing football this year, Don.
Yeah, we're all of a sudden UT's a basketball school. Imagine that.
Yeah, UT, like you said, Texas Tech. Hey, what's going on there? Bill, let's get back to these Rockets, though, man.
Okay, so the Panzer, the Sherman, the T-34, the T-7, the George Patton, the M1 Abrams. They are all tanks. Yes.
Look at Bill. Bill is like educating. He pulled out some physics a while ago, talking about Zion. Now he's World War II armor warfare.
If they aren't tanking, they should seriously consider tanking. I'm not trying to be mean or whatever, but I mean, who thinks they're going to contend? Who? None of us. And I don't think they think they're going to contend. So play some young guys, give some of your older guys some load management. Wait. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. As even when this team was good, it wasn't good, right? And so now that the team's bad, like why are we having this discussion? Your best chance to go from being just flat out awful, and Frank already pointed out the numbers. I'm not saying they're gonna be bad in such a way that's gonna make them great, but they can't be good anyway. You know what I mean? Like, well, like there isn't something happening where all of a sudden this team's going to turn into a team that's going to win 50 games or even 40 games. I think if everything went perfectly, this might be like a 31-win team. If everything goes perfectly. I don't think everything's going to go perfectly, though. So just for me, I'm just saying hey, let's see what some of these young kids got, right? Hey, let's play. I don't know what else to say. Like, this is in the West. I mean, like, and they're in the West. I mean, hey, let's see what happens next year. I don't know what you want to
Oh, man. Yeah. Like you said, there's not a whole lot you can say about Houston. But
there's a lot I can say, but if you won't like what I have to say. I really am trying to be as kind as I can.
Well, like Grandma used to say, if you can't say anything good,
Next question, then.
Well, all right. Next question.
I think I'm going to have to take off, guys.
All right. Well,
Okay.
Hey, man, come back whenever you get ready. I'll send you a link, and whenever you want to come on, you're welcome, man.
All right. Thanks so much. Always good to talk basketball.
Yes.
Being here.
Leor's a growing young man. He needs his rest.
All right. Take care, bro.
You want to tell us your social media or give us your
Yeah,
final
it's
thoughts?
just yeah, I'm on Twitter. It's just at my name, LIORKOZAI. We said Z here, but Z for the American audience. All right, take care, everyone. Have a good night.
All right, guy. You have a good one.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Well, guys, let's talk a little football here. And even though it wasn't in concrete when I asked the question this morning, I guess since then,
It's democratized. Yes.
it has Urban Meyer is back. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, I believe, whether or not he was going to, survive another season at home without football. Evidently not, and also evidently very well paid.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Urban Meyer won't get out of bed unless you're talking 8 figures. So yes.
well, yeah, I think if we're talking about Urban Meyer, it's only appropriate that we start with the Ohio State fan. Frank, you want to start this discussion off here?
Well, first of all, there are several people in order that you cannot really badmouth in the state of Ohio. You can't talk bad about Woody Hayes. You can't do that. Even if he deserved it, you can't talk bad about Woody Hayes. You can't talk bad about Earl Bruce. Even he deserved it, you couldn't talk bad about Earl Bruce. You can rip the crap out of John Cooper, even though he may not. That's a given. You always rip John Cooper because there has to be one of them. You can't talk bad about Jim Tressel, and you can't talk bad about Urban Meyer. But here's the difference. They all finished and stayed finished. Whether it was their doing or not, they stayed finished. Urban Meyer has resigned twice for health reasons that, to my knowledge, have not been resolved. Also, he has talked about, they show the pretty picture of the wife and his kids and all that. And I want to spend more time with the family. I want to do this, but then I'm going to go on TV and do road games and all that stuff anyway. So I don't think that we're worried about the family situation because I think this is going to cause him to get that 8-figure salary and have to give half of it to somebody really soon. That's just my take on it. But the idea of you're going to try and build around Urban Meyer, and when you're building an NFL franchise, unless he has that great touch that he's going to fix it next month, he probably won't be there to see it to fruition. That's just my take on it. But if he's laid the groundwork, and that's fine, like he did with Ryan Day, okay, that's cool. We bring in somebody to caretake it and make it better. That's fine if that's the plan. I don't think that you can do that in Jacksonville. I don't think that's the situation. So on the surface, it looks like a great hire, and people that are unfamiliar with the situation, you brought in Urban Meyer, and he did this in Bowling Green, he did this in Utah, and he didn't fly. Long run, not a good move for either side, to tell you the truth.
Don?
Well, it's funny because, Urban Meyer was talked about being at Texas.
Right.
And Texas offered him more money, believe it or not. And he
I believe it.
He turned it down. So,
Texas.
But the speculation is that Urban Meyer will take several coaches from the Ohio State staff, including his son-in-law, who I believe is the offensive coordinator for Ohio State, quarterbacks coach. It's funny because that has a domino effect throughout the football world, college and pro, because some of these football recruits have committed to Ohio State. I'm thinking Quentin Ewers from South Lake Carroll here in Texas. And, he has that relationship with Urban Meyer's son-in-law. If he goes, he has one more year left. He could recommit to Texas, or he could go Alabama. Who knows? But, trying to get in the mind of an 18-year-old kid that's dangerous business there. So, Urban Meyer going to the college, going to the pros, that's the only the only coach I can think of that made that successful jump to the NFL and college back and forth would be Pete Carroll. Nick Saban couldn't do it. I mean, he kind of fell on his face at Miami and got back in college and became, Bear Bryant reborn. So, I think Urban's going to have a lot of dominoes fall in his lap to be successful with the Jaguars.
Don, I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, did he kind of not want the Texas job because he didn't like how they treated Tom Herman?
No, he and Herman hate each other, actually.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you knew that. There was the whole scandal with the woman who got beat up.
Yep,
Can't remember her name. And
Tom Herman was one of the sources, right?
Well, I think Herman's wife might have been. I can't.
Right. Okay, right.
I don't know the whole story, but
yeah.
Anyway, they had that whole thing going on, and the relationship between Herman and Urban Meyer it soured real quick. They were, I wouldn't say they were great friends, but they worked together. They won a lot of games at Ohio State together, but it kind of soured. And if you watch Urban Meyer talk on his pregame shows, he kind of took some swipes at Texas.
Okay.
And no, there's no love lost there.
Okay.
Bill?
Well, it's a great hire if there's a clause that says in 2024 when Urban Meyer leaves because of whatever, that you get Ryan Day. If it says that, it's a great hire. If you've got a Ryan Day clause coming in 2024, then my hat's off to you. If you do not have a Ryan Day clause, I mean, the greatest coach ever to live would need a while to turn that team around. I mean, pick whoever you want, whoever you think is the greatest coach ever. Belichick, Shula, Landry, Rockney, pick any of them. It's going to take a while. They don't have a great foundation there. And they did not that long ago. Like, it's funny. They used to have a really nice foundation of young talent. They had gone from being a team that was bad at drafting to starting to draft well. And, you had Miles Jack and Jalen Ramsey and, a lot of really good players and, older guys like Calais as well. But you had a solid foundation on defense and enough on offense, sort of like the Ravens, a way of building a team, but a little different. And then, like, it's not all gone, but it's mostly gone already. And now they're rebooting. The good news, obviously, is you get a chance at the top pick in the draft. And that's, pretty much a fait accompli is going to be Trevor Lawrence. Now, I'll be honest, I would be open to trading the pick. I don't think they will be, but I would be. I would be. I think that they've got enough talent at quarterback that while the team is terrible anyway, these guys could mind the store while you built other things. And people will say, but Trevor Lawrence is generational. We say everybody's generational nowadays. It's the most overused term in scouting. I mean, I hear you shouldn't be telling me there's not 2 or 3 generational players in every draft like you hear people talk like there are. Penny Sewell's a generational left tackle. Trevor Lawrence is a generational quarterback. Najee Harris, no, they aren't. There may be at most one and probably less than one generational player in this draft. So I wish people would stop saying that. But they're not one player away. I mean, I don't know the last time we checked the roster, but I've checked it. They're not one player away. Take it from me. I look, so you don't have to. They're about 7 players away from being a team that could go 11-5, 10-6. If everything goes well. And like I said, I'm sure they'll take Trevor Lawrence and, it'll be a big splashy thing. And owners love that and fans love that. And, they'll go 6-10. Whee! But, Urban Meyer is the reason they'll even get to 6-10, though. I mean, he really does have a good way of, one, he's going to, like many offenses nowadays, it'll be similar to almost exactly probably what Trevor Lawrence has already run. Like, it's funny. It took football 97 of its 100 years for for pro offensive coordinators to say, hey, instead of shoehorning you into what I like to do, why don't I find out what you're good at and do that? It only took 97 years of professional football for somebody to decide to try that. So that's my prediction, is that they'll probably run an offense that is very close, if not exactly the same. It'll probably be a combination of what Urban Meyer likes and what Trevor Lawrence has already done at Clemson. And, some, more pro-esque wrinkles probably in a few things in terms of both running pass game. But, they just don't have all that talent they used to have. I mean, you don't just replace Jalen Ramsey. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but they're maybe not generational, but he's like a once-in-a-decade guy. Maybe not a generation, but you're going to have to wait a while before another Jalen Ramsey. There's not one in this draft. I've looked, in case you're wondering. You don't have to worry yourself. There are no Jalen Ramseys. I looked hard. You might find a Chris Harris. I saw a couple of those, but there's no Jalen Ramseys in this draft. So they can't get back to what they were. They have a good, cheap young running back. They have some cheap young quarterbacks but instead they're going to get, a top draft pick at the position, I guess. But even he's not that expensive nowadays with the new salary structure. But 6 and 10, right? I mean, if that's cool with you, that's cool, I guess. I just don't think it makes the most sense they could get a king's ransom back for that pick. And I think that they would be, 4 and 12 instead of 6 and 10 this year, but have a chance to be 9 and 7, 10 and 6, right, and maybe 12 and 4 after that, because you've got all these picks. You can get back maybe 2 number ones this year and another 2 maybe next year, or 1 and a 2 next year. I don't know. Whatever. What do I know?
Hey, Bill, I got a question for Bill.
Yep.
And maybe Frank also. So who knows the Urban Meyer offense and who's cheap right now?
Oh,
Dwayne Haskins.
Well, yeah, right. I mean, yeah, he's
available.
He's dirt cheap right now. You're right about that. I wouldn't be shocked if he's not brought in as a starter, but I won't be shocked if he's brought in.
He knows the offense. He knows the system.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you can get him for probably 408. What's the minimum now? Is it what 5? Is it 560? Oh, actually, it may go. I guess it'll stay the same, right? Because of the
it'll probably
it probably won't go up. So yeah, it'll be for
I was kind of half joking, but stranger things have happened.
I mean, that's a no lose situation. You bring him in. It's kind of like the Antonio Brown thing. Come on in, show what you can do. If you can't do it, we don't need you. If you can help us, you help us.
Yeah, yeah. Frank, is this another year for Eric Bieniemy to stay with the Chiefs? I mean, he's getting interviews, but it doesn't look like a hire.
I don't know. And I think part of the problem is we don't see how he interviews or what they're looking for in an interview. It's an interesting thing. I had a chance to talk with Carl Lee today, former Minnesota Viking. He's at Marshall. Actually, he's not at Marshall, but he's part of the search committee for the Marshall head coach. And he gave me some insight into what you're looking for as a head coach that maybe we're not looking for. Now, obviously, it's a difference between an NFL head coach and a college head coach, but it's the idea of it's not all about X's and O's. It's not all about the offense you can bring to bear. What do you know about defense? What do you know about special teams? But can you coordinate all that together? And are you going to have to be the play caller? That's a tough thing to do. What do you know about player personnel? Not to say that he doesn't know these things, but maybe that's part of the problem. Plus, it's rushed because he's still coaching. And I know they say that you shouldn't be punished for being in the playoffs, but let's face it, you get punished for still being in the playoffs. You just can't go in and spend all day talking to someone when you're still coming up with a game plan for the game in a couple of days. So I don't know. I really don't know how it's going to shake out. I'm not hearing anything one way or another, but I know this: that most of these teams already want their coaches in tow, by this weekend, if not later than that, earlier than that. So, someone's going to have to step up and say he's the guy. And I'm not sure there's a situation that if I were him, that I would just be running blindly into take, to tell you the truth. Not that he has the decision of I can take whatever job I want, but you don't want to. OC of the Kansas City Chiefs isn't a bad deal. I think I'd rather do that than be the leader of the Jets, let's say. So I think he can pick and choose. So it may not be all everyone else's decision. He's going to try and have to find a fit that works for him.
Don, what do you think?
Well, Deshaun Watson in Houston was actually vocally, telling the GM to hire Bieniemy. Deshaun Watson is very frustrated right now in Houston, and I understand that. If you're a Texan fan, you want Deshaun because when he's healthy, he's money. But I think Bieniemy should be coaching somewhere. NFL, I don't know, college. But right now, there's a lot of turnover going on in college. Their job openings come up. Coaches are getting fired. There's places where he could end up if he chose to pursue those opportunities. But I like Frank was saying. I mean, being offensive coordinator at Kansas City is probably a better gig than being the head guy at with the Jets. I mean, it's that the old adage: do you want to rule in hell or serve in heaven? I mean, it's but I mean it's. But I like Bieniemy.
I wonder if that's a question the Jets actually asked during their interview process, Dodd. Hey, would you rather serve in heaven or come here, rule in hell?
Well, just throw this out there. See what you think. Yeah.
Bill, what's your thoughts on Eric Bieniemy?
So, like some of you, I've been watching Eric Bieniemy's career since he left. Was it Marrero in Louisiana? I'm trying to remember which town it was. To go out to Colorado back when Bill McCartney was, building a killing machine out there in Colorado. And I've watched his career ever since. And, I'm trying not to get bitter, I guess, about certain things. But it's very, very clear to me that, as was pointed out earlier, it's more than just your ability to coach that some people look for. And I'm not trying to pick on Cliff Kingsbury, but he's such an easy target. I cannot imagine any black coach anywhere at any level who goes, 46-40 or whatever it is. And, in the Big 12, which is a solid conference, but, we're not talking about, an unbeatable conference with sometimes a fair amount of talent on his teams. And the NFL is like, we got to have him. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so funny to me how NFL teams tell themselves what they want. And now you have to overcome the perception of what they want. And it's not all race, but it's a lot of different things. And race is a part of it. Like, we can't run from it, or we can, but it doesn't make it less true. That is a portion of it, right? They talk about coaching style, and they talk about what's your plan and, your soft skills. And those stuff that when you talk to people who've been involved in the hiring process, they bring up a lot of different things. But at some point, someone's resume should matter, right? And his resume is beating the living bejesus out of, no offense to Joe Judge, no offense to Kingsbury and some other guys, but his resume is beating the living bejesus out of these people, some of these people's resumes. And so there's clearly something wrong with the process where if he gets passed over again and we act like, maybe next time, like there isn't always a next time. I could bring up all these coaches from Sherman Smith to all these others and Terry Rivitsky and all these others who are terrific coaches. And, you'll get them next time. And there wasn't a next time. So I'm hoping he gets the job. And, yes, hopefully he'll avoid I mean, if I were the Eagles, I'd be like, I don't need an interview. Just come in and take the damn job.
Right.
But,
Right.
but once again, what do I know? But it just shocks me. It shocks me that we're still having this conversation.
Don, I'm going to come to you on this one because it's a Texas thing. What did you think about the way the Houston Texans handled the GM? And do you think that Deshaun Watson should have had at least some input into the hiring?
Well, the players are players, and Deshaun Watson, he has an opinion. We know that J.J. Watt has an opinion on the other side of the ball, and they both are very vocal. I think when you're doing the hiring process, whether it be GM or head coach, you do want to get input from your players, especially your franchise, guys. Are they going to be able to work with this coach, that coach? I'm not saying turn over all the decisions to the team. I'm just saying you got your captains that, I think they need to be filled in on the process. And, I think that places like Houston, Philadelphia, places that could use some new blood, I think they need to take a long look at guys like Bieniemy, But the Houston Texans, that they had a very disappointing season. That it was a roller coaster, emotional, physically. They switched coaches in midstream, and that's sometimes a good thing, often not. But I think that once the season winds down, I think the Texans need to make some changes in front office.
Bill, what do you think about the way that whole thing went down?
Well, I mean, Deshaun should not be given a seat at the table, except if you've asked him to have one. If you've invited him to the table and then you don't have a seat there for him, then you have a problem. If they had never said, hey, Deshaun, we're going to consult you or we want you to be involved, I mean, he still might be a little salty, but he wouldn't be as salty. He wouldn't be refusing to take your phone call salty. I'll put it that way. The only reason he's as upset as he is because he was told, yeah, we want you to be involved. Okay, we didn't mean involved as in involved. We just meant, like you would show up at a photo op and smile with no matter what we did. I mean, it smacks of everything bad, disrespect, dishonesty. Like, pick any of the disses that you like. All of the disses that are not good, this was disingenuous. It was all of that. And you took a relationship. I mean, first of all, and, I guess the stuff is leaking out about how the team as a whole felt about Bill O'Brien. He apparently was not a beloved figure, I think it would be fair to say. And I can understand that in the wake of that, you want to say things that will mollify and smooth things over. But you can't say them if they're not true. I don't know what else to say to that. So if you told him, yeah, we want you to be involved, we want you to be able to consult with, then do it. Or just don't say it. Don't bring it up. It's just, what a poorly run organization. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. Like, the Rockets, the Texans, like, come on, folks. Like, what's going on? We just talked about Cliff Kingsbury going 40 and 46 or whatever it is, his 470 something winning percentage at Texas Tech, and sort of falling up, right? Because the job he was about to take was the OC job at USC. There was no college team offering him a head coaching job. He was on his way to LA to be the offensive coordinator when Arizona swooped in. And then we have Jack Easterby, who was the Patriots chaplain. And you're telling me that he is going to be an instrumental figure in running your franchise. And hey, I'm a man of faith. I think, faith is a wonderful thing. But speaking of resumes, have y'all checked out Jack Easterby's resume? How is this happening? And once again, there's no way any black man, any Latino, any whatever in America with his resume would even get a sniff at an upper level front office position in a major franchise in any of the major sports. So yes, there's still a lot of good old buddy, glad handing, slap on the back, brother-in-law stuff that goes on. And unfortunately, that stuff almost always happens with white candidates and never happens with anybody else. So once again, it's not all about race, but race is a part of it. So you have this organization with this Jack Easterby character who, I mean, the 30 for 30 about Jack Easterby is going to be awesome, but it's not great for football. And so you have this bizarre situation with cooks, too many cooks probably in the kitchen, and some of the cooks didn't even go to cooking school, right? So I'm not wild about how they've got this thing put together. And you manage the one asset, the one crown jewel of your franchise. You've got lots of problems. I mean, J.J. Watt's on the backside of his career. You got rid of your best wide receiver since Andre Johnson. You've done some bad things as a franchise, but you have this crown jewel, this thing that's going to make you very attractive to anybody who is going to take the next job, but you manage somehow to piss him off. What? Like, it's just so simple. Like, some things are hard about running a football team, but not everything. Some things are simple. Don't piss off your most important football player.
Frank?
Well, I'm going to take a little different tack, but it's going to come to the same place. The way we, and ourselves included, market sports, we market to the star. We market, if Houston's playing the Kansas City, we market it as Deshaun against Patrick Mahomes. That's
and they're
it.
with each other like pregame and postgame handshake.
That's exactly, but that's how we market it. It goes back to the Magic and Bird thing. There were some other guys on the court that could play, but in order to get people to watch the game, Magic versus Bird. Okay, so we do that. We build that sense of entitlement to that guy because as far as the layman is concerned, there are only two players on that team. There's J.J. Watt, if he's healthy to play, or he's not out building a dam or a barge or something for somebody, and Deshaun Watson. That's it. So in his mind, when he's sitting at home flipping through channels and every commercial is, watch Deshaun against, hey, I'm that important. They seem to think so, so I must be. I'm that important. And next thing you know, you're not that important. It's going to piss you off a little bit. That's simple.
Right, but he wouldn't be pissed off if then told him they were going to bring him into the process.
Exactly. So if you're going to do it that way, and you did it that way, what are you going to do? You're going to have a pissed off guy.
Going to start with you here, Frank. Your candidates for Rookie of the Year.
Well, I'm going to go with a couple of different choices here. Chase Young and Edwards-Helaire if he played the entire season. Because they're two guys that made a big difference for both of their teams. Now, the Chiefs would have been good regardless. But I don't know about the Washington football team. So I'm going to go Chase Young. Make it easy.
Don.
Great case for Chase Young. James Robinson, you can throw him up there, but I like you go either one, but Chase Young is a safe bet. He's gonna Chase Young's gonna have a phenomenal career in the NFL.
Bill.
Chase Young's great, and I've loved watching him, once again, his entire career, college and moving up to the NFL. And Joe Burrow was off to a great season until he got hurt. And somebody mentioned Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but, they didn't skip a beat when he got hurt. So I don't know, that kind of undercuts his case that they were able to fairly easily replace his production. James Robinson is a great and great dark horse pick, and he really helped to carry a bad offense at some points. And Justin Jefferson, I mean, for those who haven't been paying attention, Justin Jefferson had a year for the ages and a year that, only two other rookies have had. And, at the wide receiver position, one of them is Anquan Bolden and the other one is Randy Moss. So when that's the company he's in, like the only wide receivers in the history of football that have had rookie seasons like Justin Jefferson are Anquan Bolden and Randy Moss. So those three are the list. They're the top three in rookie receiving touchdowns, yardage, etc. in the history of football. So I think he deserves some credit, but I'm going to go with Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert, all the things that people are saying about Josh Allen are true of Justin Herbert, and he's getting there faster. While Josh Allen was struggling with accuracy down the field, struggling with reading defenses, struggling with not putting the ball in jeopardy, and had about a 1-to-1 touchdown interception ratio, Justin Herbert's killing it on a team that's not even particularly good, but he's having an amazing season. He has Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry, and Eckler was hurt a lot, but the line is good, not great. Their defense would have been great if it wasn't riddled by injuries and opt-outs, but I'm going to have to go with Justin Herbert just because he's a special talent at the position that we keep saying is the most important position in football.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there, Bill. I like Justin also. Bill, what do you think about this format where only the number one team gets to bye? Do you think we should keep it?
I'm fine with it. I think, first of all, I'm not one of the people that was like really. I mean, I liked having the 3 games like everybody because I'm a football junkie. But I mean, you and I and several are old enough. We've seen the playoffs expand and expand and expand, and soon half the league's going to make the playoffs. And I'm not a purist exactly. I'm not. I promise. But I'm starting to wonder if we are getting close to the point by which it's subtraction by addition in terms of just keep adding more layers and layers to the playoffs. I'm okay with the bye. I just don't need them to keep adding more rounds of the playoffs. As much as I love football, the playoffs should be a reward for the best teams, not just teams that are decent or okay or so. Like we're gonna have, like everyone sort of flipped out about, like when Seattle was 7-9 and it set up the whole Beastquake game when they beat the Saints, and there have been a few other teams that have been 7-9 or whatever, but that's nothing that bothers me the most. So I'm not wild about it. I just think we're gonna get to the point where we're going to see. I mean, it's like the NBA. I mean, once again, I don't dislike the NBA, but too many teams, in my opinion, make the playoffs. There are teams in the NBA playoffs that I'm like, this is a bad basketball team, right? And football isn't quite there yet, but it's getting close. So I'm okay with once again, I could do without the extra couple of teams. But if we're going to do it, this seems to be the right way to do it. I'm okay with the bye.
Don?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100% with Bill. Basketball has way too many teams, and the changes in NFL. I kind of see what they're doing. They're trying to give these teams a catch up on this, this 2020 COVID year. I get it. The NBA has way too many playoff teams. College football doesn't have enough.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree with Bill 100% on that. I mean, it's. Of course, I can watch football all day. I can watch football all year. I mean, so.
Right.
My neighbor's kids are playing, this afternoon out in the street. I'll stop and watch that.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
I think I might have been a voter for the AEF Hall of Fame because I watched all their games.
Well, we'll see. I do like this format, and I wouldn't mind if they used it as a regular thing in 2020. But let's see if we can start making our predictions here. Let's start with the AFC. Bill, the Browns versus Kansas City.
I have been a person who has believed in the Browns. I wouldn't have believed in them so much last week. I wouldn't have picked them, but I believe in the Browns. First of all, I'm big on roster construction. I say that term a lot. That's a very well put together roster. They have their best players are in their mid-20s. It's what you want. Your best players are all between about the age of about 24 and 29. They have depth, quality depth on both offensive and defensive lines, and they're missing, obviously one of their most explosive playmakers on offense. But other than that, the offense is very, very good. And their running game is the best in the whole NFL. And it's not even close. Like there's a real gap between them and number 2. All that being said, I don't think they can score with the Chiefs. What's the thing that always happens with the Chiefs? You get a 10-point lead. You're starting to feel good about yourselves. And then, oh, my God, how did Tyreek Hill get away from us? Boom! And then you go to halftime, and you're a little bit freaked out. You come back from halftime. They get the ball back. Boom! Sammy Watkins, 78 yards. Like, how did that happen? And now, in what seems like an eye blink, you went from up 10 to down 4. And it's just a flood of points. Now, the Browns do have a very good defense. And their pass rush is, one of the top 6 or 7 in the league. But the problem is you have to rush him a specific way. You can't just rush Pat Mahomes the way you rush normal quarterbacks. So you've got to be extremely disciplined. You have to compress the pocket. And Don could probably speak to this. I think he's, coached up and taught guys in terms of dealing with – he's not a super mobile guy the way that guy like Kyler Murray is or the way the guy like Lamar is. But he's slippery, for lack of a better way of putting it. He seems to have a really good sense of how to feel people around him and make those little subtle moves. And he's got just enough athletic ability that can hurt you. So you've got to rush him smartly. Because if you just go in there pell-mell, I'm going to get this guy, I'm going to crush him or whatever, and he slips away from you, he spins, and then, So your defense has to play death by 1,000 cuts in the secondary. We're just going to keep everything in front of us and try to give our pass rush time to get there. You've got to have linebackers who can cover. Everybody has to go to cover. You've got to have 3 or 4 pass rushers, and everybody else has to cover somebody, or needs to be able to cover somebody. And even then, you're not guaranteed. But, I won't say it's a blueprint, but if you look at how, of all people, the Raiders defended Mahomes, and if you haven't watched the all 22 of that game, I highly recommend it. Their safeties were super disciplined. They didn't take the cheese. They said, if you're going to catch that, in front of us, cool. We'll rally up and tackle. They didn't bite. You can't bite. If you take the cheese, strike up the band, goal lines, and headlines. So you've got to be super disciplined on. I said the Chiefs. Chiefs.
Don, after Big Ben gave them 28 points, we still managed to come back and get within 11. Do you have any confidence in the Browns against this Chiefs team with so many weapons?
Well, I call this game the Kingsbury Bowl because Mahomes and Baker Mayfield both played for Kingsbury at Texas Tech at one time. Yep. So, but I think the clock's going to strike on the Browns. They're going to have to go home in their carriage that has turned into a pumpkin. Chiefs going to take them. It's going to be a great game to watch. I'm going to enjoy it, but Mahomes, no. Chiefs going to win, but the Browns. I got to take my hat off to them. The Browns have come a long way in the last 2 years.
Yep.
Yes.
Sashi Brown, Andrew Berry. People took shots at Sashi Brown and I can't remember the other what was his name? The other guy that came in with him. Remember how bad that roster was when they wrote in. They got rid of a bunch of bad contracts. They got rid of guys like, Manziel and Justin Gilbert, and they got out from under a bunch of bad contracts, and they flipped that roster over. And they've drafted well the last 3 years. Like, there's no way you can get around it. I mean, you can say what you want about the Browns, but they've drafted as well as – there's only 2 or 3 other teams that have drafted as well as they have the last few years.
Yeah, guys like Myles Garrett. I mean, they're still young.
Joe Antonio. Yeah, I mean, Wyatt Teller. Yes, they've drafted it super, super well.
Don, the Ravens against the Bills, which I think is going to be probably the best game for me. I think these teams are very evenly matched.
Yep.
And it's they're both young quarterbacks, but it's a contrast in the way that they play the game. Both are able to run, they're rather mobile. If as far as arm strength, I think you have to give that to Josh Allen.
Yeah.
I also think when you look at Singletary, Singletary is head above Hollywood. But Don, your thoughts on this game?
Well, you know, before we got on this show today, I was watching ESPN 30 for 30 about the Buffalo Bills Super Bowl, the 4th straight that they lost. That was and so kind of leading to this, I was thinking, you know, I love the Ravens. I love the fact they got Devin Duvernay from UT. Justin Tucker is a Texas guy. Running back Dobbins, he's from LaGrange, which is not too far from San Antonio. He went to Ohio State, but okay. But anyway, you know, my heart really is with the Ravens, but the Bills, God help them, they need to win. And so I think the Ravens will win, but my heart, I'm going to turn off all my Texas ties. I'm going to cheer for the Bills, but the Ravens are going to beat them.
Bill?
So if you were watching those old Buffalo Bills, you saw 2 of my high school teammates. And a guy I ran into when I was a graduate assistant at U of Illinois. So Henry Jones was a player at U of I when I was a graduate assistant there. And then 2 of my high school teammates were on that team. Number 43, the safety, Matt Darby from Green Run High School, and Keith Goganis, the linebacker, also from Green Run High School, Virginia Beach, Virginia. 757 football. So despite that and any sort of soft spot that I may have, I don't have any problem saying the Ravens. I think the Ravens are going to win this for one pretty straightforward reason. Though Josh Allen has improved dramatically over the past couple of years, he still puts up some interceptable balls. And unlike some other teams, I think the Ravens will catch those interceptable balls that he still throws up. And their running game, which is essentially Josh Allen as well, will be completely stymied. You mentioned Singletary. Unfortunately, Devin Singletary has not had a great year, and in fact has lost a lot of snaps recently to Zach Moss. And Zach Moss is a plotter. And I like Zach Moss. I watched him a lot at Utah, but he's the kind of guy that if you block everything perfectly, he might get you 7 or 8 yards. He's a guy that's going to average like 3.6 yards a carry against average defenses, which means he's going to average about 2.9 yards against this defense. And I believe that though the Bills are very good against the run, they won't be quite good enough against this particular running game because everyone's going to point to what they did to Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's a terrific football player, and I'm not trying to denigrate him in any way at all. But he's not a guy who's a quick start and stop guy. He's very different from a guy like J.K. Dobbins. And as much as I like Derrick Henry has never made a guy miss in the hole in his life because it takes him he has to get on that runway, what's it called? He needs about 3 or 4 steps to get going. He's not, a Ray Rice. He's not a J.K. Dobbins. He's certainly not a Barry Sanders. He's a terrific running back, but he needs unfettered runway, right? He needs that at least first 3 steps with nobody bothering him. If you make him change direction, you make him chop his feet, you make him go side to side, zip straight ahead, you can neutralize Derrick Henry. That's not what you can do to J.K. Dobbins, and you really can't do that to Lamar. Lamar is best at changing direction. Like, that's how he beats you. he makes cuts that a man who's that tall with legs that long, your mind tells you he can't make. So you take an angle, looking at him thinking, well, that's a quarterback, and he's 6'2" and kind of slender. He's no way he's going to make a cut that dramatic. I'm going to take my angle at this apex, and I'm going to knock his head off. And then at the last minute, he makes a cut that a guy his height with, like I said, with that high center of gravity, it just shouldn't be possible. He shouldn't be able to do this. It should be physically impossible for him to change direction at that speed, at that height, and then he does it anyway because he doesn't understand physics, apparently. And boom, you're left tackling air. And so I think you're going to see Lamar be able to get some business done both as a runner and as a passer. And I think Josh Allen will get some business done as a runner and a passer too. But he doesn't have the help around him in the running game. So he's carrying that running game. He's going to be, I mean, it's ironic that we always talk about Lamar as a runner, but in terms of percentage of the run game, actually, Josh Allen is a greater percentage of the Bills' running attack than Lamar is of the Ravens. Because the Ravens, everybody, Gus Edwards is getting yards. I mean, Gus Edwards had like an 800-something yard season. Like, everybody's getting yards in the running game. And then last but not least, I think that you're going to take advantage. This kid's a great athlete. He really is. But he can be fooled in the running, both run and the pass game. But Terrell Edmonds is going to be matched up at some point on Mark Andrews. They're going to exploit that matchup. He's a great athlete, but he struggles with route concepts, and he takes false steps, and he hesitates.
Frank, we're talking about the Ravens and the Bills.
Well, the one thing that I've thought of that when you're involved in athletics, you don't want to give the other team any kind of ammunition or any thought that you have a weakness. And I know they asked the question, and this is where you say, no comment, I don't care. But we've made a story about Lamar Jackson and snow and cold weather and what's going to happen if this, what's going to happen there. So you just don't know what he's going to feel. So now you're going to have people swiping at the ball more so than they normally do. Now you're going to have people getting in his head, talking about this, talking about that, and maybe he's already gotten into his own head. Now, is that a big deal? Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. But I think the bigger deal is that the Bills are that good. So they're going to have to play a game where it might be catch-up. The Ravens, I mean. They're going to have to play a game where you never know what they're going to have to do because the Bills are going to hold serve. So now maybe you make Lamar more of a passer. Maybe you make him more of a runner. As Bill said, they have weapons around him that they can utilize. But when he has to take over the game by himself and has to, that could be a problem. Whereas Josh Allen's like, oh, look, there's Stephon Diggs. I'll throw him the ball. Oh, I can do this. I can do that. Or I can take the game over with my legs. I think one of the biggest problems is you're going to have to figure out how do you replace Zach Moss because that's going to be tough. Now you're looking at, do I have enough weapons on my own? I still like the Bills, but that could be the big liability that Josh Allen has to do it by himself. Will the Ravens defense allow him to do that?
And you missed our conversation with the Browns and Kansas City, so give us your pick there.
I left on purpose. I didn't want to talk about that. Look, it's the playoffs. It's the Chiefs. They're just too good. I don't care if it's a shootout or if they try and run clock as far as Cleveland's concerned. Kansas City is content to win 17-0 if they decide to win, if they decide to score those 17 points in this 3-minute time frame of the game. They can do whatever they want whenever they want to do it. Just sometimes they don't look like they want to do it. But Kelsey can't be stopped. Tyreek Hill can't be stopped. You've got running backs, you've got this, you've got Robinson, you've got guys that you don't know about half the time that are going to catch 3 or 4 balls on that offense. And the defense is just good enough. So, and I don't think they're going to give you 21 points to start the game just because. So that's going to be a key. So look at KC for that one.
Well, let's start our National League match. Excuse me, our NFC portion. And Frank, I'm going to start with you. I think it's what, the Rams at Green Bay.
We've got Jared Goff playing, which, whenever you have a quarterback playing that can't handle the ball, that's kind of a red flag. And I don't know what kind of coverage we've been getting on the Packers, other than we just say they're good, but we leave it at that. They're really good. I mean, they're really good, and they're playing enough defense to make it worth their while to not have to play great offense. And I just don't know if Aaron Donald is enough. And I know we talked about corners earlier and all that, and that's all fine and good. But if you give Aaron Rodgers enough time to throw the ball, you could have Night Train Lane out there, and he's going to pick him apart. So, if Aaron Donald is able to be slowed down, and Brockers and all those guys, it looks like a field day for the Packers.
Don, what are you thinking here?
Well, this year we've seen like a resurgence of the old Aaron Rodgers. He kind of shook off some of that rust he had last year. He has a renewed enthusiasm. I think that the Rams have had a pretty remarkable season, but Aaron Rodgers is going to he's going to be behind probably with less than 2 minutes left in the game, and he's going to go down and score a touchdown and beat the Rams. And if that happens, my fantasy is have a Super Bowl. It'll be called the Jake from State Farm Bowl with Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers.
Hey, it just might come to that. Bill, what do you think?
Great.
Well, I mean, that was my preseason prediction, Don, as you might remember.
Really?
Yeah, that was my preseason prediction. That was what I said before the season even began. I don't know if you keep track of these things, James, but if you pull the tapes, you'll find that was my preseason prediction, and I'm feeling pretty good about it so far.
But did you name it? But did you name it the Jake from State Farm Bowl?
Yeah,
Now, that part I didn't think of, so I'll give you credit for that part.
I'm gonna make a T-shirt. Have a T-shirt made.
Yeah. First of all, let me give a lot of credit to Sean McVay. There's not a lot of coaches who manage to hide their quarterback's weaknesses and, lift up their strengths as well as he does. Like, he's a magician in essence because, they had John Wolford at 100%, and then they had Goff at, 70-something%, and managed to piece together a win in the playoffs. That's resume tape on coaching right there, kids. Unfortunately, it will not be enough this week. So somebody mentioned Aaron Donald and things like that. And Don said something about how Aaron Rodgers had a down year. It's like if you look at the stats he had last year, if that's a down year, you realize that all but 3 or 4 of the guys playing quarterback in the NFL will never have a season like a down year that Aaron Rodgers had last year. It's hilarious. 28 of the starting quarterbacks in the NFL will never have a season like that, and it's a down year. That's how high we set the bar, I guess, with Aaron Rodgers. But he's having a peak Aaron Rodgers year, which means as long as the rest of the team isn't terrible, you're going to play in the Super Bowl. That's what that kind of means. You have to blow it at this point if he keeps playing like this. And the pressure is going to get there. He'll get knocked down a couple times. He won't take the big sack because he's reached that point of quarterback mastery where he knows how not to take the big sack, the one that breaks your collarbone, the one that separates your shoulder, the one that collapses your lung. He's learned how not to take that hit. He's still a good athlete, but he's very judicious now in the way he uses it. He doesn't take big hits anymore. And he's going to manage the game. And once again, we've sort of put a pejorative around game management. No, game management's a good thing. I want you should take your shots when they're there, but there's no reason to try to force things that aren't there. He's at the point in his career where he doesn't try to make things happen that aren't there. If it's not there, throws it away. If he's going to, either he throws it away before the sack gets there. If he can't get the ball out, he just takes a sack. Doesn't try to make too much happen. Doesn't put the ball in jeopardy. He's basically as perfect in terms of how you play the position as a player can be at this point, pretty much. And he doesn't quite have the physical talent that a guy like Mahomes does, but he's got 96% of it still. Josh Allen maybe another 3 or 4% above that, but he doesn't have to be that anymore because he's now knows, as they say, all the answers to the test. So when Aaron Donald goes barreling in there, it's a screenplay. Curses! I would have gotten it there if you meddling kids in your screenplays. So he knows how to check into it out. He's good. Once again, I talk about masterclass. Get your DVRs going, kids. You're going to see a quarterbacking masterclass. Like, it's a good defense, but you're going to see a quarterbacking masterclass. He's going to score like 31 points against a good defense. Get your DVRs going.
While you got him going, Bill, what about the Saints and the Bucks?
Now, this was the one that was the toughest for me. I had clear-cut, easy things just come to me with all the other games. Like, I know this one, I know this one, I know this one. This is the one that's been tormenting me. The matchups, if you look at how the two teams match up, you would think they'd be evenly matched. But I've watched the two games with my actual eyes that they've played, and they didn't look evenly matched. And some things aren't always fixable. The thing about the way Tampa Bay's defense works, once again, we talk about this, they're predicated on getting pressure, and they're mostly getting that pressure through blitzing. They don't have that elite level. They don't have Aaron Donald, but then who does, right? They don't even have like T.J. Watt. They don't have that guy that doesn't need help to get there. The guys that they do have, and they have some good guys. I mean, Jason Pierre-Paul's still good. They have guys who are good, but they need a little help. They need a twist or a stunt or something. Or a blitz to distract the rest of the way the blocking's going again, shifting away from them so that they can get that free runner. If you look at a lot of their sacks, I think they have the team with the highest percentage of their sacks coming from blitzes. I'm almost certain I've seen that no team had a higher percentage of their team's blitzes sacks come off blitzes than Tampa Bay. And blitzing Drew Brees, as we've seen, doesn't tend to work out because the ball comes out. I mean, you basically have to hide your blitzer in their huddle and have him sneak up on Drew from behind. I mean, unless you've got like tunnels or something dug into the floor of the field, it's so hard to sack Drew Brees. So I don't know. It scares me, but I'm going to pick the Saints again. It's just because it's so hard to beat any team 3 times. But I wonder if they've come up with a solution to they haven't solved it before. So I don't know. It scares me when I'm picking the Saints.
Don, who you picking?
They're playing in New Orleans, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Because by beating Tampa Bay twice, they obviously secured home field. Yes.
Yeah. I go Saints. I mean, that's a safe choice there. It's gonna be a great game though, and the two old guys playing.
Yes.
So let's go Saints.
One of my favorite statistics was that on the day that Tom Brady was drafted, Chase Young was like 1 month old or something like that.
I heard that. Frank,
Well, Bill, I almost thought you were going to say Pierre-Paul was going to need a helping hand, and
helping hand, yeah, that was the low-hanging fruit. Right?
You were that close to
fruit
going there, yeah.
I left it for you to pick.
The thing about this game is its age with the quarterbacks and its health with the weapons. Is Michael Thomas healthy? Is Mike Evans healthy?
No.
Who can we do? Blah, blah. I think it comes down to this. You have a well-rested Antonio Brown, who for some reason, myself included, we don't want to talk about. But this is, and I don't want to talk about him either, but he's a healthy, well-rested, somewhat humble player to think about. And then we have the Swiss Army knife on the other side of Alvin Kamara. And it's a matter of who deploys whom the best. And I think if you look at the way the Saints are going to use Kamara, and in another portion of that is Taysom Hill, because we saw a couple wrinkles the last game that we haven't seen all season. So there's going to be a throwback. There's going to be something weird in there that Tampa Bay is going to have to be ready for. And it might only be for a first down. It might be a fake punt. As I noticed he's the back on the punt team.
Punt protection. Yeah.
Haven't done it yet, but you never know. So I take the game out of the quarterback's hands because they're both susceptible to pressure. But Brady, you can pressure blitzing or right up the gut, whereas Drew Brees gets rid of the ball a little bit quicker. But you put somebody up the middle with hands raised, you're going to knock the ball down. So I think they cancel each other out. I think it's going to be basically Kamara and Taysom Hill versus Antonio Brown and, I don't know, does Gronk have a big game? I don't know. So I take the Saints just because I think they have a little bit more on that side, and I think you're going to see a game out of Cam Jordan as well that we haven't seen in the last couple of weeks. So go Saints.
Gentlemen, my final question, or kind of my final thoughts, and I wonder what you guys are thinking here. When you look at the AFC, every quarterback is below the age of 30. Most of them younger than 28. If you look at all four teams.
Yep.
When you look at the NFC, except for one, all the quarterbacks are over the age of 35.
Yep.
Frank, advantage who?
You know what? I don't think there is one, to tell you the truth, because I don't think they're playing to their ages. Now, if you're going to run a track meet out of it, it's a whole other story. But I don't think that it's something where, they all seem to have live arms. Drew Brees isn't throwing as crisply as he used to, but he can still throw the deep ball. Tom Brady isn't throwing as crisply as he used to, but he can still get the ball around. Then in the AFC, you got guys using their legs. So they all work to their strengths, and that's probably why they're here. So I really don't know that you have anything there you go, this is an advantage here. Not that all of them, the older guys, are having their best seasons, but they're not having bad seasons. We mentioned Aaron Rodgers coming back from a down year, but I don't think that anyone has been a liability for their team, and the team's carrying them. Again, they're not at their peak, but they're not bad. And on the other side, the young guys, I don't think the teams are carrying them either. They're pulling their weight. So I don't see that there's really a liability one way or another.
Don, your thoughts?
Yeah, youth is being served. We've heard that, but Aaron Rodgers can still sling it. Like I said, it's going to come down between, I think, Aaron Rodgers and Mahomes, and I think that's going to be our Super Bowl. But yeah, it's funny to look at it. The age of the different quarterbacks. If you think about it this way, you have three of the quarterbacks who are hang on. Two quarterbacks from Texas, so that's another way of looking at it too. So,
Texas. Bill, what's your thoughts? I mean, in the young man in the NFC is actually, if you wanted to grade him, he would be D out of the four quarterbacks in the NFC.
Yeah, it's scary.
So what do you think there, Bill? You're one of those guys. You probably scouted them all since they were in middle school.
Well, Jared Goff obviously is the youngster on the NFC side, so he at least doesn't get the early bird discounts yet. But the AFC, is really laden with a lot of exciting young quarterback talent. And, Justin Herbert's going to be in the playoffs in another couple of years, and it's going to be just amazing. We'll see what Trevor Lawrence becomes, but there's Joe Burrow will get healthy. I mean, there's a lot of really exciting young quarterbacks in the AFC. I mean, a lot of exciting young quarterbacks. So, we have a changing of the guard coming. Guys like Phillip Rivers are, if not done, will be done soon. And, Ben's maybe plays one more year, probably, but
Hope not.
If that. And, obviously Drew maybe one more year, but could be done this year. Tom's going to play another year or two at the most. So, yes, we're seeing a changing of the guard. Obviously a little more on the NFC side than the AFC side, but there's, like I said, so much young talent. We'll have to see if the NFC can replenish the same way that the AFC has done at the quarterback position because, Kyler Murray obviously is a super exciting young quarterback. Who else is really, really, really young and super exciting? I mean, there's some other guys who are youngish, but, they're not really proven commodities the same way that the older ones are for the most part on the NFC side. So that's an interesting point, just sort of the distribution of that. But, the only solution obviously is to draft well at the quarterback position. That's how you fix that one. So get on it, NFC teams. I mean, Kyler Murray needs some rivals, some foils, somebody to sort of, ride with him into the next decade because, the top quarterbacks in the NFC will all be done soon. I'm trying to think of who else is really, really young and really good. I mean, Dak is not super young, but he's really good when he's healthy. And, Russ is sort of between. He's not 35, but he's 32, I think. So, yeah, there's not a lot of kids. I mean, the whole I have trouble running a car age quarterbacks are mostly on the AFC side. So that'll be interesting to see if that changes soon.
Bill, thank you as always. Why don't you give us your final thoughts and tell us about your social media or any projects you got going on?
Well, I'm going to start dropping as teams leave the playoffs. I'm going to start with the teams at the bottom, the team, picking first and work my way up. Mock drafts for each team will be dropping on YouTube. I'll be doing those. And I'll do my last group of college football things, my last group of Saturday superlatives, which looks back at, this one will be looking back at like the bowl season and playoffs. And so I'll celebrate those players who stood out. And what else do I have coming up? I'm starting to take GMs for the 7th annual Mock Draft-A-Palooza, which is a live 7-round mock draft that we'll do maybe on StreamYard. I'll do it somewhere. So that's coming up, but that's a while off in the distance. But my final thought, and it's probably a good thing you didn't have me on last week because I would have been pretty upset. I, like some of you here, have at a point in my life taken an oath to defend this nation and its Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I wasn't incredulous and I wasn't shocked. I was disappointed, but I wasn't even surprised because I pay attention to what people say. And as Maya Angelou and others have said, when someone tells you who they are, listen. So I knew what the Oath Keepers and 3%ers and Proud Boys and Boogaloo Boys had been saying they were going to do. And they had attempted to, snatch, kidnap Governor Whitman. There had been a pipe bomb incident in Nashville. It was clear to me that it was coming. And when I hear law enforcement say they didn't know it was coming, it's like, well, do you guys not have Facebook? I mean, I don't know what to say. Like, this wouldn't have been like some deep cover operation that you would have needed to figure this one out. If you have Twitter and Facebook, you know it's coming. You see them because these people love to take pictures of themselves and live stream. So you see them loading up their RVs. You see them
getting their tactical gear together and posing with it. You see them, threatening Nancy Pelosi and threatening other people. It's not, there's no hiding. These people are not, these are not super sleuths. These are not ninjas. There's no artifice. They were super clear about that they were coming, what they were going to do. It was, when someone says, we had no idea this was coming, like, really? How? How did you not know it was coming? Do you not pay attention? Because that's the only way you could not know it was coming. You just weren't paying attention. Because, I know denial is not just a river in Egypt, but if you look at everything they were saying for months, going back to obviously the latter part of the first week of November on forward, they weren't mincing words. There wasn't some code about what they were planning. It was incredibly obvious what they were planning to do. Now, you could say you were surprised by the intensity or by how many of them, and even that is somewhat amateurish if that's what surprised you. But even if it was just one crazy dude with a pipe bomb, it doesn't take thousands to create mayhem. It was clear that they were coming and they intended criminal mischief. And they told you as much. So, once again, I'm glad I wasn't on here last week because I've calmed down some. But it is very clear to me that there was a clear and present danger in our nation and that it must be taken seriously because for a long time, we've kept our eyes outside. Oh, it's so-and-so coming. It's so-and-so coming. No. The call's coming from inside the house. The trouble is here. Are you going to build a wall around Wyoming? You're going to build a wall around Idaho, around Ohio, around Tennessee? You can't build a wall around this. It's in the heart of America. And unless and until it is taken seriously and punished to the full extent of the law, we will continue to see this type of incidents. May God help us. May God bless us.
Frank, your last final thoughts for the night.
Well, as far as what I've been doing or have been doing, whatever, the Ultimate Sports Network just started another portion of what we do, and I call it the History of Sports. So I just dropped a video that details the NBA draft lottery. And for those of you that think your team is going to get better by the NBA draft lottery, watch the video and understand it's not going to happen. The other thing that we're doing with that, it really wasn't intended to be part of this, but in our boxing shows, we realized we had a lull in the schedule. And in the month of January, Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, and George Foreman were born.
All born, yes.
So all the month of January. So yesterday, our show was we watched and recorded our responses and showed the entire fight of the first Ali Frazier fight. Just posted that a few hours ago. And that was fun because I was a young kid and I don't remember ever watching the entire fight bell to bell. And it was fantastic. And if we call it commentary or analysis, basically it's us going, oh, ooh, ah. That's what we do the entire fight. So if you want to hear guys make noises, watch the fight with us. And then next week we will do Frazier versus Foreman. And the following week, we're going to do Ali versus Foreman. Awesome. So that's part of what we do there. Now, my final thought, and I got cut off last week by the internet gremlins. Going back to my youth, when you only had 3 TV stations and sports were only on so often. And I'm a basketball guy. And though I'm not necessarily a Celtics fan, all you could ever see were the Celtics at that point.
Yeah.
And I grew up and I saw Paul Westphal and Casey Jones. Casey Jones before Paul Westphal, obviously. And then when they traded Paul Westphal to Phoenix for Charlie Scott, I now became a Phoenix fan because they showed them as a little bit as well. And both of those guys passed last week. And it just reminded me of that not only can you be in the moment of what you enjoy, but you can also revel in that as you get older and understand they took what could be for some people a basketball playing career and turned it into coaching and more after that as well. So for anyone that is involved in sports, that loves sports, it's not just the playing of it, it's the other stuff. I just run my mouth and talk about stuff. But there are other people that really are involved in sports education, training, getting people to understand that if you are involved in sports, more than likely you should be able to come up with a better life than just being some schlub standing on the side of the road. So that's what I believe.
Yeah. Don, you got the final thoughts. Take us home.
All right, final thoughts. Well, good to be on the show again. This is like a holy weekend for football in Texas. We got the state championships. I don't know if y'all have access to Fox Southwest on your cable, whatever, but Saturday night at 7 o'clock, Westlake versus South Lake Carroll.
Oh, wow.
There's probably going to be like 7 or 8 D1 players playing that one. Quentin Ewers, the current commit to Ohio State, #1 prospect in his class. Caleb Kubanek from Westlake, he's the other quarterback for the other team. He has offers North Carolina, Texas, Texas A&M, LSU. Crazy football. The 2 5A games will be tomorrow night. One's at 1 o'clock and one's at 7. I'll catch one at 7, won't catch one at 1. And then Saturday, it's again 1 and 7. They're playing at the Cowboy Stadium up in Arlington. So if you want to see some good high school football, this is it. This is in the Carroll Westlake game, it's father versus son. Todd Dodge, who played with my brother at Texas,
Legendary
quarterback,
Todd
Fred
Dodge,
Akers.
Yes.
He was the offensive coordinator.
And
Riley, his son. Yeah. Yes. He kind of went viral back in, I think, 2006 when he was playing the state championship, and he actually threw up on the field, took the snap, and threw a touchdown pass. But he goes,
That's football.
So that's my final thought. Steve Sarkisian is putting together a great staff. He's robbing Alabama blind. So, and before I go, because Frank had threatened to shoot someone earlier, I have the weapon for you. I'm a gun collector.
Oh,
That's sweet.
This is a Dutch 1865 flintlock pistol, part of my collection. So you put the powder in, you take this thing out. Well, I'm not going to put it out. Ramrod. You put your flint in, cock it. Yeah. So Frank,
as fast as I was moving, that would have worked just fine.
so yeah.
Okay. Oh wow.
It's funny that the Dutch were actually underrated as far as firearms manufacturing, but that's for another show.
yes, it is.
Hey, y'all have a great night and God bless. Stay warm.
God bless.
Mercenaries too. A lot of Dutch mercenaries for those military history. The Soldiers of Orange. James, you've muted yourself apparently.
Yeah, evidently I have. But as I was saying, have a great weekend.
You too, sir.
We appreciate the audience, and we look forward to talking to you next Thursday right here on SportsKRIB.
Good night.